Since the kidney is the main organ that actually filters the blood, we need to take a closer look at the kidney. The kidney contains about 1 million nephrons. These are structures found straddling the border of the cortex and the medulla of the kidney, and it's the nephrons that actually carry out the job of filtering the blood and creating the urine. These are considered the functional unit of the kidney. Let's get an overview of how a nephron works to actually create the urine. What happens is we have to bring blood into the kidney and into the individual nephrons. So each nephron has its own blood supply. Water and small soluble molecules, both waste and nutrient molecules, are pushed out of the blood and into the nephron. The nephron collects this filtrate, and the filtrate goes through a long tube called the renal tubule. In the renal tubule, most of the good molecules are going to be retained. So we're going to reabsorb the good stuff. We're going to take back the glucose and the amino acids so that by the time the filtrate has worked its way through the renal tubule of the nephron, what's left is a little bit of the water containing a lot of waste molecules. And this is what we call the urine. This is going to drain through a system of ducts into the ureters, where it's eventually sent to the bladder and out of the body. Let's take a closer look at the blood supply going to each nephron. Blood is going to be brought into the kidney from the aorta through the renal artery. The renal artery goes into the kidney and then divides into these interlobar arteries. The interlobar arteries go up the renal columns of the kidney. Once they get up the renal column into the cortex, they turn and arc over the renal pyramids, forming what we call the arcuate arteries. These arcuate arteries divide into tiny little arteries called the interlobular arteries. We're going to zoom in for a closer look at what's going on here. If we take a look here, we see an interlobar artery that would be coming up through a renal column, turning to form an arcuate artery here. And this is an interlobular artery in the cortex. The interlobular artery branches into a number of afferent arterioles. The afferent arterioles carry the blood to the nephrons. The afferent arteriole branches into a capillary bed called the glomerulus. The glomerulus, the capillary bed, is surrounded by a renal capsule that's going to collect all of the water and the molecules that are filtering out of the glomerulus. This is where filtration actually happens, where water and good and bad molecules are all going to filter out of the glomerulus and be captured by the nephron. Once filtration has been accomplished, the remaining blood in the glomerulus is gathered into an efferent arteriole. This carries the blood out of the renal corpuscle. But we're not done yet, because this renal tubule is going to be reabsorbing a lot of good molecules, and we want to get these good molecules back into the bloodstream. So the efferent arteriole branches into a capillary bed. Depending on exactly where this capillary bed is, we either call it the peritubular capillaries. That's what's shown here is a peritubular capillary bed that surrounds the renal tubule. So all along here, as good molecules are being reclaimed, they can be reabsorbed back into the peritubular capillaries. So we're saving the good stuff and getting it right back into the bloodstream. There are some specialized nephrons that have long loops that go deep into the medulla of the kidney. And these have capillary beds around those that are called the vasa recta. So here you can see a typical nephron that's got a peritubular capillary bed around the renal tubules. And here you can see one of those specialized nephrons, and you can see the vasa recta, a capillary bed that's formed down in the medulla of the kidneys. These are really important for reabsorbing water that's being conserved in the renal medulla. Whether the efferent arteriole branched into the vasa recta or into a peritubular capillary bed, in either case, the capillaries drain into an interlobular vein, and that interlobular vein drains into an arcuate vein, which drains into an interlobar vein, which eventually is going to go into the renal vein, which is going to carry the blood back to the vena cava so it can be returned to the heart.